Welcome back to my audiobook series of philosophical dialogues. I am your reader, John Van Stam, and today's dialogue is Hiero by Xenophon. This dialogue explores the nuances of power, specifically the type that shapes the lives of rulers, what some today may consider despotic levels of power. Xenophon orchestrates a conversation that contrasts the experiences of rulers and the ordinary folks they govern. The dialoguers are Hiero, a ruler of Syracuse, celebrated for his prowess in military and political arenas, and Simonides, a renowned lyric poet. Given Hiero's journey from private citizen to ruler, Simonides probes him for insights on his experiences on both sides of power. Anyone intrigued by the pursuit and dynamics of power and its supposed benefits would profit from careful attention to this exchange. Ultimately, Xenophon challenges us to reflect on the true essence of happiness and leadership. It questions the automatic equation of power with pleasure, prompting a deeper consideration of what constitutes a meaningful life, whether in positions of command or in the ranks of the common. Through the interplay of ethical dilemmas, personal aspirations, and the broader consequences of wielding power, Xenophon's Hiero stands as a timeless investigation into leadership's core challenges and joys. Now, let us attend to this ancient conversation, still so relevant to our modern quests for power, happiness, and a life well lived. Once upon a time, Simonides the poet came to the court of the monarch Hiero, a monarch who many said was a tyrant. When both obtained the leisure requisite, Simonides began the following conversation. "Would you be pleased to discuss with me, Hiero, certain matters as to which it is likely you have greater knowledge than I?" "Pray, what sort of things might those be? On what topics could I have greater knowledge than yourself, who are so wise?" "I am aware that you were once an ordinary person with no powers above that of any common mortal, and have since risen to become a king, and not just any king, but one of the highest, the king of powerful Syracuse. Given this, you have experienced both lots in life. You should know better than I how the life of a ruler differs from the life of an ordinary person. I am especially keen to understand, from your perspective, the balance of pleasures and adversities that life, in its myriad forms, bestows upon us." "Might it be more straightforward if you, still a private person yourself, could refresh my memory by recalling the various joys and sorrows that befall an ordinary mortal's life? With these before me, I should be better able to describe the points of difference between the one life and the other." "For those of us outside the sphere of power, life teems with a multitude of pains and pleasures. These arise from our engagement with the world through our senses, the sights for our eyes, the sounds for our ears, the scents of our nostrils, and the flavors for our mouths. Not to forget the intimate pleasures known through Aphrodite's gifts, whose means are familiar to all. Our entire body, too, judges the extremes of temperature, the texture of what we touch, discerning comfort or discomfort from such experiences. And then there are those joys and sorrows perceived by the mind alone, or in concert with the body, shaping our inner landscape in profound ways. In the realm of sleep, pleasures too make their visitations, though their manner and timing elude my full understanding, highlighting perhaps why our waking perceptions more vividly capture our attention." "Simonides, after considering the senses you mentioned, I can't see how a ruler experiences life differently from anyone else, for a ruler has no other channels of perception. Our ways of perceiving joy and sorrow seem the same. On this point, a ruler's life does not differ in any way at all from that of common people." "But no doubt the difference lies in the intensity and quantity of these experiences. Though all humanity share the same senses, a ruler must enjoy more pleasures and suffer fewer pains through these senses. Nay, that is not so, Simonides. Believe me, the fact is rather that a ruler's pleasures are fewer, and their pains not only more numerous, but also more severe. No, that's hard to believe. If that were true, why is ruling envied by all? The answer is simple. Because they form conclusions on the matter without experience of the two conditions. I will try to prove to you the truth of what I say, starting with sight, which, unless my memory betrays me, was the sense you mentioned first. Well, considering sight, rulers are at a disadvantage. Every region of the world, each country on this fair earth presents beautiful things that any ordinary person can visit to see. Cities, festivals, great gatherings. But a ruler cannot easily join these crowds, or leave his realm unattended, for it is not safe for him to go where he will find himself at the mercy of assembled crowds. Nor are his home affairs in such security that he can leave them to the guardianship of others whilst he visits foreign parts. A twofold apprehension haunts him, that he will be robbed of his throne, and at the same time be powerless to take vengeance on his usurper and wrongdoer. You might argue, why does he need to travel to see such things? Those experiences are sure to come to him even if he stays home. To some extent, you're right, Simonides. A small fraction of those experiences might indeed come to him. But even then, they come at such an exorbitant cost to the ruler. You see, any person bringing even the smallest entertainment expects to be paid a fortune from the ruler's treasury, 10 times more than he can hope to win from all the rest of mankind in a lifetime. After getting his reward, he quickly departs. Well, even if rulers have a disadvantage in sights and sightseeing, you must admit that you benefit greatly through the sense of hearing. The sound of praise, which is among the sweetest, is something rulers are constantly surrounded by, since everyone around you praises everything you do and everything you say, whilst, on the other hand, you're spared from the most harsh and grating of all sounds, the language of abuse and harshness of criticism, since, well, no one dares to speak evil of a ruler to their face. And what pleasure can there really be in not hearing harsh words, when those who remain silent likely harbor evil thoughts against the ruler? And what genuine delight can come from their compliments, when there's always the suspicion that such praise is given only out of flattery? Yes, I admit that I must concede your point. Indeed, praise is sweetest when it comes genuinely and freely from those who are themselves free. But consider the next sense. It would be difficult to convince anyone that rulers don't enjoy a broader array of pleasures when it comes to food and drink. And this is an important point, as these are the essentials on which all rely for sustenance. Yes, Simonides, I understand your point. And what is more, I know the explanation of this common point of view. The majority have come to believe that we monarchs enjoy our meals more than ordinary people do, thinking they would find the dishes at our tables more satisfying than their own. And doubtless, variety can enhance enjoyment, which is why folk in general look forward with pleasure to high days and holy days, all special occasions for feasts. Yet, for a ruler whose table is always laden with an abundance of dishes, there are no longer any special feast days to anticipate with pleasure. So that, as far as this particular pleasure in terms of the joy of anticipation, a monarch is at a disadvantage compared to ordinary people. Furthermore, I am sure your own experience will agree with my next argument. The more options set before a man at table, beyond what's sufficient, the quicker one becomes tired of eating, so that in the actual duration of the pleasure from eating, someone with a simpler diet may find greater satisfaction than one surrounded by an excess of choices.
Yes, but good gracious, surely during the time when the appetite eagerly welcomes any dish, the time before one's appetite is satiated, the gastronomic pleasure derived from the costlier menu far exceeds that of the cheaper and simpler meal.
But, as a matter of plain logic, wouldn't you agree that the greater the pleasure a person feels in any activity, the more enthusiastic is their devotion to it?
That is quite true.
Then, have you ever noticed crowned heads display more pleasure in attacking the meals provided to them than any private person's theirs?
No. On the contrary, I've observed the opposite. If anything, kings, queens, and other royals tend to show less enthusiasm, unless they are greatly misrepresented.
Well, and all these wonderfully made dishes which are set before the ruler, or 9/10 of them, perhaps you have observed are combinations of things acid to the taste, or pungent, or astringent, or like these, curries, pickles, bitters, peppery condiments, and so on.
To be sure, they are entirely unnatural creations, one and all, in my opinion, most alien to ordinary palates.
In fact, these seasonings seem to be nothing more than the cravings of a digestive system dulled by excess, of a stomach weakened by luxurious living. I'm quite sure you'd agree that a truly hearty appetite has no need for such delicately prepared items as these.
Fine. What about smell? It is true, at any rate, that those costly perfumes used to anoint rulers like yourself, that your neighbors enjoy their scent more than yourselves, much like how the strong, unpleasant odor of certain meats is more noticeable to those around the eater than to the person actually consuming them.
Good. And by this logic, we argue that one who has access to every type of food at all times hardly feels an appetite for any of them. It is instead the person for whom these foods or perfumes are rarities. That is the one who, when presented with something unfamiliar, will enjoy it with the most pleasure.
It seems increasingly clear that the only pleasure left to justify the common desire for power might be that associated with Aphrodite, for in this field it is your privilege to engage with whomever you deem most beautiful.
Nay, now you have named that one thing of all others, take my word for it, in which we rulers are worse off compared to others. Starting with marriage, it's believed that unions with prestigious families of higher wealth and influence are most desirable because they offer not just pleasure, but also prestige. Marriages among equals, that is considered next best, while those with partners of lesser status are apt to be regarded as degrading and disserviceable. In practice, a ruler, unless marrying a foreign princess, must choose a spouse from a less prominent position, and thereby the highest satisfaction is denied him. The devoted attention of a highly esteemed woman given in marriage is incredibly fulfilling. In contrast, the companionship where the wife is but a slave, her presence barely noticed, and her absence, well, what fell pains and passions will that not engender? When it comes to romantic relationships outside of marriage, particularly those not aimed at procreation, a ruler is even more deprived of joy. It's commonly understood that the greatest pleasure in love requires deep passion. However, genuine passion is rare in the hearts of rulers. True love thrives on the thrill of pursuit, not on the certainty of conquest. Well then, just as one who has never experienced thirst can hardly be said to know the pleasures of drinking, so too someone who has never tasted passion is ignorant of Aphrodite's sweetest sweets.
How say you, Hiero? What is that? Is it impossible for a monarch to experience deep love for their dearest? What of your own passion for Dilochus, whom they call most fair?
That is easily explained, Simonides. What I seek from Dilochus is not something easily taken as others might think, but rather what a ruler is least likely to receive. My affection is indeed profound. Everything that our nature demands from beauty I desire from Dilochus, but I yearn for these desires to be fulfilled willingly, with genuine affection. To take them by force is as abhorrent to me as harming myself. If Dilochus were my foe, taking something by force might bring satisfaction. Yet, the most delightful gift is the voluntary affection of the one you love. How sweet are mutual looks of love, the exchange of questions and answers, and sweetest are the disputes and reconciliations of true lovers. But to force one's love, in my view, is more like to theft than to romance. The thief finds joy in his gains and the suffering of his adversary, but to find pleasure in the anguish of someone we cherish, to kiss and be despised, to touch and be detested. Could there be anything more repulsive or sorrowful? For an ordinary person, every act of kindness from their beloved is a sign of true affection, free from coercion. But for a ruler, the assurance of being loved is always in doubt. Indeed, it's well understood that actions done out of fear may mimic those done out of love. And sadly, it's often those who seem most loving who plot against rulers most.
Yes, but the topics you have named are to my thinking trifles, drops as it were in the wide ocean. How many truly noble individuals have I encountered who willingly live modestly without indulgence in fine foods, drinks, or even sexual pleasures? No, it's in completely different realms where you, as rulers, greatly surpass us common folk. It is in your vast designs, your swift achievements. It is in the overflowing wealth of your possessions, your horses renowned for their lineage and spirit, the exceptional quality of your weapons, the exquisite finery of your wives, the gorgeous palaces in which you dwell, and these, too, furnished with the costliest works of art. Add to which the throng of your retainers, courtiers, followers, not in number only, but by their skills. A retinue befitting royalty, and lastly, but not least of all, in your supreme ability to harm your foes and benefit your friends.
It does not surprise me, Simonides, that the majority are misled to believe in these supposed allures of being a ruler. For it is the very essence of the crowd, if I am not mistaken, to hastily judge the happiness or wretchedness of people based merely on appearances, even from just the first sight. Now, the nature of ruling is to present, nay, flaunt, a show of the costliest possessions for all to see, as this captures the public's attention. But the real troubles in the soul of any monarch they keep privately concealed in those innermost chambers where the happiness and the unhappiness of mankind are stowed away.
I agree, Hiero, that many are quick to judge the life of a ruler by its outward splendor, overlooking the hidden sorrows. However, from my observations, there seems to be aspects of your experience that may not fully align with your perspective.
Ha! I repeat, then, that it's no surprise that the multitude should be blinded in this matter, but that you also, Simonides, with your keen insight into the heart of matters, should share its ignorance. Well, that does indeed excite my wonderment. Now, I know it all too plainly from my own experience, and I assure you, the ruler is the one who has the smallest share of life's blessings, whilst of its greater miseries he possesses most.
But of peace, and of war. Are these not in the ruler's possession to a greater measure than the ordinary person?
Another appearance. If peace is held to be a mighty blessing to mankind, monarchs scarcely experience it. Or is war a curse? If so, of this particular pest your monarch bears its brunt most heavily. Consider this. While the private citizen can travel freely in times of peace, the ruler cannot stir without setting his foot on hostile territory, and nothing will persuade him otherwise. He must go through life armed, and on all occasions drag about with him armed guards. In the next place, the private citizen, even during an expedition into hostile territory, can comfort himself in hoping that as soon as he gets back home, he will be safe from further peril. Whereas the ruler precisely knows the reverse. As soon as he arrives in his own city, he will find himself in the center of hostility all at once. Or, let us suppose that an invading army, superior in force, is marching against a city. However much the weaker population, whilst they are still outside their walls, may feel the stress of danger, yet once within their trenches, one and all expect to find themselves in absolute security. But the ruler, he is not out of danger even when he has passed into his palace. Nay, there of all places most he feels he must be most vigilant. Again, to the private citizen there will come eventually, either through truce or terms of peace, respite from war. But for the ruler, the day of peace will never dawn. What peace can he have with those over whom he exercises his ruling sway? Nor have the terms of truce been yet devised, on which the ruler may rely with confidence.
You share a compelling view, Hiero. If there are no terms of truce yet devised to allow a ruler to enjoy peace, what of war? Perhaps the ruler bears less of those costs than the ruled. May this be a reason that rulers make war amongst nations?
Oh, wars doubtless there are, waged by states and monarchs against those whom they have forcibly enslaved, and, in respect of these wars, there is no hardship which any member of the states at war can suffer that the ruler will not also feel. Both citizen and ruler must alike be under arms, kept guard, run risks, and whatever the pains of defeat may be, they are equally sustained by both.
Equally sustained? The burdens of warfare? I am inclined to yield to your arguments again, Hiero, but what about when war ends? Let us consider the aftermath of victory. While citizens collectively revel in their shared triumph, basking in communal joy and glory, does a ruler in his singular position experience a heightened sense of glory beyond what any individual citizen can? Does the communal enthusiasm and joy elevate the ruler's triumph? Or is his experience inherently different, perhaps even more isolated?
Thus far, my wise guest, the experiences of war are indistinguishable between the ruler and the populace. The hardships are shared. But when it comes to the joys derived from the success of warfare, the similarity does end. The ruler, if he shared the pains before, does not share the pleasures now. What happens when a state has gained mastery in battle over her antagonist? It would be hard to describe the joy of that occurrence. Joy in the rout, joy in the pursuit, joy in the slaughter of their enemies. And in what language shall I describe the exultation of these warriors at their feat of arms? They adorn themselves with the spoils of victory. With what mirth and joviality do they congratulate themselves on having raised their city to newer heights of fame? Every citizen claims to have shared in the plan of the campaign, and to have slain the largest number. Indeed, it would be hard to find where false embellishments will not creep in. the number said to be the slain will exceed that of those that actually perished. So truly glorious a thing it seems to them to have won a great victory. Victory is sweetest for the ruled, and only returns the ruler to his uncertain terms of peace.
Your insights reveal a grim reality for rulers, in war, in victory, and in peace. However, rulers have the unique advantage of acting against perceived threats due to their constant vigilance, something citizens cannot do. Can't a ruler find peace through such actions? While the ruled, they must adhere to the laws and withstand any threats.
When a ruler anticipates, or possibly perceives in fact, that some opposition is brewing and puts the suspects to the sword, he well knows that such actions will not thereby promote the collective welfare of the state. The cold, clear fact is, he will have fewer subjects to rule over. How can he show a cheerful countenance? How magnify himself on his achievement? On the contrary, his inclination is to downplay the severity of his actions as much as possible. He will apologize for what he does, even as it occurs, letting it appear as though what he has wrought at least was innocent, which reflects how even he perceives his actions as lacking in honor. And when those he dreaded are safely in their graves, his sense of security does not improve one whit, but he is still more on his guard than heretofore. That is the kind of war with which the ruler is beset from day to day, continually, as my experience attests.
Let us turn, then, from conspirators and enemies of war to friendship. What sort of friendship is given to rulers? Can we agree that it is truly a great boon to all mortal men, ruler and the ruled alike?
Indeed. Consider one who is surrounded by true friends. See with what gladness his friends and lovers greet him, how they delight in doing him kindness, how they long for him when he is absent from them, and how they welcome him most gladly on his return. In any good that he receives, they rejoice together, or if they see him overtaken by misfortune, they rush to his assistance united in their support. Nay, even states and governments recognize that friendship is the greatest boon, the ultimate gift and source of happiness to humanity. This is evident in the laws of many states that permit the punishment of adulterers without reprisal, viewing them as threats to the marital bond of friendship. If a wife's fidelity is compromised, a husband may still hold her in esteem, as long as their mutual affection remains untainted. So sovereign a good do I, for my part, esteem it to be loved, that I do verily believe spontaneous blessings are outpoured from gods and men on one so favored. Yet, this greatest and invaluable treasure of humanity is what a monarch most lacks.
Come, surely rulers experience some true friendships. You spoke of marital bonds, not founded on blood but chosen. Yet a ruler, despite not having the freedom to choose a spouse as citizens do, they still form familial bonds. Are you suggesting a ruler cannot enjoy even one genuine friendship, even through bonds of blood?
I do say so. If you require further evidence that what I say is true, look at the matter thus. No bond is stronger than between parents and children, siblings, spouses, and close friends. If then you will but thoughtfully consider it, you'll discover that it's the common person, perhaps the commonest of common people, who is chiefly blessed in appreciating and enjoying these relations. Of rulers, however, many have been murderers of their own children, many murdered by their children. Many brothers have been murderers of one another in contest for the crown. Many a monarch has been assassinated by the wife of his bosom, or even by his own familiar friend, by him of whose affection he was proudest, or by his closest ally. How, then, can a ruler, so despised even by those naturally inclined and legally bound to love him, be truly loved by anyone at all? Again, without a fraction of faith and trust, how can a man not feel deprived of a significant blessing? What kind of relationship, conversation, or society can be enjoyable without trust? What kind of marriage would be fulfilling without trustworthiness? How could a faithful esquire be beloved if his faith is in doubt?
In the absence of trust, even the strongest bonds would seem fragile. How, then, does a ruler manage genuine connections amidst such inherent suspicion?
This lack of trust, it plagues a ruler to the point where he cannot even trust his own meals and drinks. He feels compelled to have his servants taste the food and drink before the meal begins, or before any libation to the gods is poured, out of a deep-seated fear of poison.
At least when a ruler's meal is clean and consumed, is some fear assuaged for some time?
Not at all. Consider that most common people find in their homeland a treasure beyond compare. Citizens naturally protect each other without needing payment, guarding against slaves and wrongdoers, ensuring that no citizen suffers a violent death. Some communities have enacted laws stating that not even the associate of a murderer is to be considered innocent, highlighting the value of their collective safety and trust. But for the ruler, everything is reversed. Far from receiving aid or vengeance from their cities, rulers see honors bestowed upon those who kill them. Instead of being shunned from sacred places as murderers of private citizens are, those who assassinate rulers are celebrated with statues in temples.
And you say that wealth does nothing to aid a ruler in securing some pleasure under these circumstances?
If you think that because a ruler possesses more, he derives greater pleasure, this is not the case. Similar to athletes who do not revel in defeating amateurs, but feel distress at a loss to a worthy opponent, a ruler does not find satisfaction in being wealthier than a private citizen. Instead, he is pained by the thought of having less than other rulers, viewing them as his true competitors in a race for wealth. Nor does a ruler achieve his desires more swiftly than the average person. Consider the ambitions of a private citizen: a house, a piece of land, a servant. The ruler, on the other hand, yearns for cities, vast territories, harbors, and strong fortresses, goals that are much more difficult and dangerous to attain. This is why there are fewer private individuals who can be considered poor, compared to the number of rulers who fit that description. Enough or too much isn't determined by simple numbers, but in relation to individual needs. Anything beyond what is sufficient is considered excess, and what is lacking is seen as deficiency.
Do you mean to suggest that a ruler's wealth is more a necessity for survival, where each expenditure is no mere purchase of pleasure, but a matter of life and death?
Precisely, Simonides. With his vast resources, a ruler is ironically less equipped to meet his essential expenses than a private person, who can adjust his spending according to his daily needs. The ruler, however, faces enormous expenses that are crucial for his survival, such as maintaining an army, even in peacetime, to ensure his security. Reducing these expenses would be like to endangering his own life. Thus, why should rulers pity someone who has the private means to satisfy their needs through just and honest actions? It's more fitting to pity the person who, lacking resources, is forced into despicable acts to survive. This is the ruler who, driven by an insatiable need for money to cover his inexorable expenses, resorts to looting temples and exploiting people. He must support an army in times of peace as if preparing for war, or else he signs his own death warrant.
It may be as you present it, Hiero, but a ruler's ability to harness the greatest talents of his realm, that could be a source of strength, not fear. Can't a ruler build a council of the wise, the just, and the orderly, to protect both his rule and the nation's welfare, thus finding joy in shared success and prosperity?
You raise another grave challenge that rulers face, Simonides. Rulers, like anyone else, can recognize talent and virtue. They see and understand the value of the orderly, the wise, the just, the upright. Yet, instead of embracing these qualities, they fear them. They fear the brave for their potential to fight for freedom, the wise for their ability to devise cunning plans, and the just for their capacity to inspire and lead the masses. After removing such individuals quietly out of fear, who remains for the ruler to rely on but the unjust, the unrestrained, and those of a servile disposition? The unjust are trusted because they share the ruler's fear of the people reclaiming their freedom and seeking retribution. The unrestrained, well, they are content with temporary indulgence, and the servile lack any desire for liberty themselves.
It's troubling to hear. Does this not also deprive the state of its potential for greatness by sidelining those who could contribute most positively?
You see, it is a profound affliction to acknowledge good men, but be compelled to depend on the less virtuous. Moreover, even a ruler has some love for his country, for without it he cannot ensure his own safety or prosperity. Yet, the demands of ruling force him to act against his homeland's best interests. Training his citizens to be skilled soldiers and arming them does not appeal to him. He prefers to strengthen foreign mercenaries, who then become his personal guard. Furthermore, even in times of abundance, when the land is blessed with plenty, the tyrant cannot share in the public's happiness. He believes that the poorer the people, the more submissive they will be. That is his theory. This view dictates his actions, even amid widespread prosperity.
Well, we have compared many pleasures and hardships. It seems to me that you miss the life of a private citizen.
Oh, I wish to share with you, Simonides, the very joys I once had as a private citizen, which I lost the moment I became a ruler. Back then, I enjoyed the company of friends for mutual pleasure, or, when seeking solitude, I was content in my own company. Our gatherings were filled with laughter, often helping us forget our common human worries through the joy of drink, or we immersed ourselves in song, dance, and merriment, feeling passion stir within us and our friends. But now, alas, I am surrounded by servants instead of friends, missing the genuine connection that once brought me joy. I now approach wine and sleep with caution, as if facing an ambush. Imagine the dread of crowds, the fear of being alone, the mistrust of guards, the discomfort of having unarmed attendants, yet despising the presence of armed ones. Is there a more vexing situation? Yet there's more. Trusting foreigners over fellow citizens, preferring barbarians to Greeks, the paradox of desiring to enslave the free while being compelled to liberate slaves. These are the marks of a mind overwhelmed by fear. Fear not only brings internal pain, but also shadows every step, stealing away all happiness. And if you're familiar with the tension of war, Simonides, the unease of being near the enemy, remember the quality of your meals and rest under those conditions. Rest assured, the discomfort and terror experienced then are nothing compared to the constant dread that haunts a ruler. who perceives threats from all directions, not just directly, but from every angle.
Well said. Though I must concede only part of your argument, as the horrors of war are undeniable. Yet, Hiero, you overlook something. In our military campaigns, we have protocols. We post sentinels, and once the watch is secure, we dine and we sleep without fear.
Indeed, Simonides, I understand your point. For laws act as the sentinels' sentinels, keeping watch over them and ensuring their vigilance for their safety and ours. In contrast, a ruler hires his guards as one might hire seasonal laborers. Faithfulness is the most crucial trait for a guard, yet finding even one truly loyal person is more challenging than finding many skilled laborers for any other job. This challenge is magnified when loyalty is bought with money, and when guards could gain more by betraying their ruler than by serving him over time. Regarding your mention of the ruler's supposed ability to greatly reward friends and defeat enemies, the reality is not as you imagine. For how can one truly benefit friends when the very beneficiaries are eager to escape the ruler's presence, fearing that what they've received isn't truly theirs until they're out of the ruler's reach? And concerning enemies, how can a ruler boast of overpowering them when every subject under despotic rule is a potential adversary? Executing or imprisoning all of them is impractical. Otherwise, who would remain to rule? Instead, a ruler must maintain a delicate balance, keeping them at a distance, while paradoxically depending on them. Be certain, Simonides, that a ruler's fear of any citizen places him in a dilemma. It's troubling to allow them to live, yet equally troubling to order their death. It's like dealing with a powerful but unpredictable horse. Its value makes it difficult to justify killing it, yet utilizing it without risking harm is equally challenging. This dilemma, it extends to all possessions that simultaneously present benefits and burdens. If painful to their owners to possess, they are nonetheless a source of pain to part with.
Oh, Hiero, it seems honor is such a powerful force that people are willing to endure great hardship and will face dangers to achieve it. Even rulers, despite the vast difficulties that come with their position, pursue it eagerly. They seek to be honored, expecting everyone to serve them diligently and follow their commands without hesitation. You become the focus of all eyes. People stand up for you and will make way for you on the streets. Everyone constantly seeks to praise and honor you through their actions and words, treating you as they would a hero they wish to honor. Indeed, Hiero, this pursuit of honor is what sets humans apart from animals. While all creatures enjoy food, drink, sleep, and sexual pleasures, only humans, and not all at that, yearn for honor. Those who deeply desire honor and recognition, well, they stand out distinctly from animals, deserving to be called truly human. Therefore, in my view, it's justifiable for you to accept the challenges and burdens of rulership, given the exceptional honor you receive, surpassing that of ordinary men. Indeed, the joy found in such high esteem is almost divine, rivaling the pleasures known to the gods.
Nay, Simonides, the honors and distinctions given to rulers are much like the affections I've mentioned. Both are superficial and lacking in sincerity. Just as affection from those who do not truly love feels empty, and forced intimacy loses its sweetness, so too do the forced respects out of fear fail to be true honors. How can we say that those who stand up because they must truly honor the person they fear, or that those making way on the street genuinely respect someone that they consider a wrongdoer? And when it comes to gifts, It's well known that people often give them to those they dislike, especially when they're afraid, in hopes of avoiding harm. These actions are more like to acts of servitude than genuine respect. True honors come from a very different place, inspired by genuine feelings. Consider how people naturally honor someone they truly admire and see as a benefactor, someone from whom they expect great things. They praise him openly, see him as a treasure, and willingly make way for him, standing up not out of fear, but out of genuine respect. They honor him for his virtues and kindness, giving gifts freely, not out of obligation. Those who offer such honors and those who receive them are experiencing true respect. I can only congratulate someone so genuinely esteemed, knowing he is genuinely cared for by all, hoping no harm comes to him. His life is free from envy, fear, and danger. Yet the life of a ruler is the opposite, I assure you, Simonides. A ruler lives as if condemned by society, forever marked by his actions.
Fine, Hiero. How is it, then, that if being a ruler is so reprehensible, and you are convinced of this, you haven't abandoned such a dreadful role? Neither you nor any ruler I know has ever willingly relinquished their power once they had it. Why is that, Hiero?
For one simple reason, and herein lies the supreme misery of despotic power. It is not possible to escape it. How can any ruler ever fully compensate for his actions? How can he repay all the wealth he's hoarded or make amends to those he's imprisoned? How can he offer enough lives in return for those he has taken? Or suffer enough to balance the scales of justice? Ah, no, Simonides. If to hang oneself outright were ever a beneficial act for a troubled soul, then believe me, it would be the ruler's best escape. It is the most fitting solution for him, as he is uniquely trapped in a situation where neither holding on to power nor relinquishing it brings any relief.
That you are disheartened by the nature of ruling, Hiero, doesn't surprise me, given your desire to be loved by people, and your belief that your role hinders achieving this dream. Yet, I'm confident I can show you that ruling doesn't prevent being loved. In fact, it may even offer advantages over private life. Let's explore this without pondering whether a ruler's greater power enables more significant acts of kindness. Consider this. 2 individuals, one a commoner and the other a ruler, perform the same act. Who, under identical conditions, will receive more gratitude? Let's start with simple gestures, like a greeting of good day or good evening. Whose greeting is more appreciated by the recipient? Or, if both were to give a speech of praise, whose words would bring more pleasure? Or, if they were to invite a friend to a significant event, whose invitation would be valued more, the ruler's or the commoner's? If both showed equal care for a sick person, it's clear that the attentions from a powerful ruler would bring immense joy to the patient. And if they both gave identical gifts, it's evident that even half the favor from the ruler would outweigh the full gift from the commoner. It seems to me that divine favor and honor accompany the path of the ruler. Leadership itself enhances a man's stature, making the admirable qualities of someone recently risen to power even more attractive. Engaging with those of higher status is more satisfying than interacting with peers, but reaching the pinnacle of distinction not only enhances one's appearance, but also casts a glow that softens imperfections and highlights true beauty. Therefore, with the opportunity to perform acts of kindness on a larger scale, rulers should be naturally more beloved than ordinary people. If not, why not?
For this compelling reason, esteemed poet, We rulers are driven by necessity to involve ourselves more deeply in affairs than the average person, meddling in issues that often become sources of widespread resentment. We need to collect taxes to cover our essential expenses. We must hire guards and place sentinels where security is required. It's our duty to punish wrongdoers and curb those who become too bold. When urgent situations arise, demanding rapid deployment of forces by land or sea, we cannot afford to rely on those who lack commitment. Moreover, as rulers, we must employ mercenaries, and this requirement places one of the heaviest burdens on our citizens. They seldom see these forces as enhancing our mutual prestige, but rather as tools of our personal ambition and greed.
Nay, Hiero, I am far from stating that you have not all these diverse matters to attend to. They are serious duties, I admit. However, it strikes me that while some responsibilities might breed resentment, others are wholly positive. Teaching virtues and celebrating excellent deeds, these are duties that naturally bring satisfaction. Conversely, reprimanding and punishing negligence are actions that likely breed discontent. My advice to the leader is this: delegate the enforcement of discipline to others, while keeping the rewarding of good deeds to yourself. This approach is widely recognized as effective. For example, in organizing choral competitions, the Archon presents the awards, while the Choragai gather the participants and others are responsible for training and enforcing discipline. This principle, it clearly separates the pleasant tasks for the ruler, the Archon, and the unpleasant ones for the others. Why not apply this principle to governance as a whole? States are organized into various divisions, with appointed leaders for each. Imagine offering awards for military excellence, tactical skill, discipline, horsemanship, bravery, and integrity in fulfilling agreements. Such competition would undoubtedly encourage these virtues. Imagine the enthusiasm for honor, driving contributions in times of need. Agriculture, too, would flourish if rewards were offered for the best farming practices. This would not only increase revenues, but also promote hard work and reduce crime. If commerce benefits the state, then merchants engaging in significant trade should be honored, encouraging larger-scale commerce. Similarly, rewarding those who find new, non-burdensome revenue sources would open up fruitful areas of innovation. In summary, if it were clear that introducing any beneficial measure would be recognized, many would be motivated to contribute positively to the state. When state benefits are highly valued, discoveries and improvements happen more swiftly. But, oh great ruler, if you worry about the cost of offering many awards, remember that awards often cost less than the wealth and effort they inspire. This may be seen in public contests, where modest prizes lead to significant investments by all participants.
Thus far, your arguments are quite persuasive, Simonides. However, have you aught to say about the issue of mercenary troops? Can you suggest a means to avoid the hatred they generate? Or will you tell me that a ruler who has won the affection of his subjects has no need for bodyguards?
Nay, indeed, rulers will still need them. Just as some horses have a natural restlessness that increases with their care, so too do some people become more unruly as their needs are met. For tempering such unruly spirits, nothing works quite like the deterrent presence of armed forces. And for those of gentler dispositions, employing mercenaries could not be more beneficial. But let me explain. You keep mercenaries, I presume, in the first instance, to protect yourself. Yet it's not uncommon for masters and estate owners to face violence from their own servants. If mercenaries primarily served as protectors of the entire community, ready to intervene when any threats arise, as threats do emerge within societies, then citizens would clearly see to whom they owe their safety. Beyond this, such forces could instill a sense of safety and confidence, benefiting not just your properties, but enhancing security for all rural areas and their workers. Furthermore, by securing strategic locations, mercenaries free up citizens to focus on their personal affairs. Another advantage is intelligence gathering and preventing surprise attacks from enemies. A well-organized, always prepared troop is invaluable for this purpose. In actual warfare, these paid soldiers are invaluable, likely to be the most determined in facing hardship and danger, and performing vigilant duties while others rest. Now, as for the neighboring states, the presence of a standing army would make peace a more attractive option for them. A well-organized force like this is key to protecting allies and thwarting enemies. Once citizens realize that mercenaries are not inclined to harm the innocent, but aim to prevent wrongdoing, thus acting as guardians and facing dangers on their behalf, they will likely be more than willing to fund such a force. After all, people already spend on private security for less critical reasons.
Simonides, your words are the words of a poet, a poetic painting of the ideal state. Yet, can a ruler truly transform public sentiment to such an extent, merely by distributing wealth and focusing on public works? The loyalty of mercenaries is bought, not earned. Can it ever compare to the genuine allegiance of my subjects? And the financial implications of your suggestions. How can we ensure these investments will not lead to envy among the elite, or unrest among the populace, who may see this as extravagance rather than benevolence?
Hiero, I suggest you not hesitate to allocate a portion of your wealth for the public good. In my view, spending on the state is a justified expense. Consider the palace. Does an extravagantly decorated building bring you more pride than a city fortified with walls and adorned with temples, porticos, harbors, and marketplaces? Regarding armaments, does personal adornment and splendid armor intimidate enemies more than a city fully prepared for war? When it comes to finances, where do you expect more revenue? From investing your personal wealth, or by developing the state's resources? On the topic of horse breeding, a prestigious activity, does personal success in chariot races bring more honor? Or would a state known for producing the most racehorse breeders and winning the most prizes shine brighter? What's truly nobler? Personal victory in chariot racing, or the broader achievement of your people's welfare? Competing against private citizens isn't fitting for a ruler. Winning might stir envy because it's financed by many, and losing turns you into a mockery. Your real competition, Hiero, should be with the leaders of other states, aiming to elevate your state to unparalleled prosperity. Achieving this, you'll not only fulfill your ambition to be loved, but also gain widespread acclaim without needing a herald. Your presence will be celebrated not just by individuals, but by entire states. Whether you travel to witness events or stay home, your objectives will be met. Each day, you'll be surrounded by people showcasing their talents and others eager to serve you, seeing them as allies whether you're present or not. Ultimately, you won't just be loved. You'll be adored. You won't chase affection. It will pursue you. You'll live without fear, transferring it to those concerned for your well-being. Surrounded by loyal and diligent supporters, they'll actively protect you, even risking their lives if necessary. You'll be seen as deserving of numerous gifts, always able to share your wealth with those who wish you well. Your influence will span globally, with a community that shares in your successes and defends your interests as if they were their own. Your wealth will match that of your supporters. So, take heart, Hiero. By enriching your friends, you enrich yourself. Enhance your city, thereby donning power and earning allies. See your country as your home, its citizens as your peers, your friends as your children, and your children as your very soul. Surpass them all in generosity, and no enemy will overcome you. Do all these things, and you may rest assured, it will be yours to own the fairest and most blessed possession known to mortal man. You shall be fortunate, and none shall envy you.
Ah, Simonides, your words weave rich and intricate poetry, and cast a spell of rare delight upon this weary ruler's ears. For a moment, you allowed me to dwell in a realm where the burdens of leadership dissolve into the ether, replaced by a harmonious chorus of a utopian dream. How splendidly poetic, and yet how teasingly distant from the throne's stark reality. Your eloquence, my friend, has indeed been a most exquisite pleasure, one of diversion. I thank you for it. Now I must go. End of Hiero by Xenophon. Thanks for listening.